Hello, everyone. So Susan, today we're going to be talking about a difficult subject, really, and the subject is what happens when you have a health challenge or a family member has a health challenge, and that can be so scary. And how do you move your way forward? And this is such an important topic because I think when people have some sort of challenge like that, specifically a health challenge. I mean, I think it's overwhelming.
Mm,
People can freeze. They don't know what their next steps are, and it can feel really paralyzing.
yeah,
But you've lived this
I
experience,
did.
and I think so many people would benefit from you talking about what happened and how you changed it and where people can go just so that they know that there are some options out there for you. So yeah, so you had an issue that
I
came
did.
up
Yep,
with your
with my daughter.
daughter.
Yep.
Okay.
Um, it started, I think, like a lot of health issues, and I think this is why it can be really stressful for people, is because when we have a sudden illness, like we are quickly ill, you get the flu, you get a cold, you know what it is. A lot of the illnesses and issues that people are dealing with today tend to be chronic, meaning that they're building up over time. And so
Okay.
we have little niggles and discomfort. And because we're busy and we're stressed and we just want to get on with our life, we kind of push them aside until our body is trying to tell us all the time. And at one point, it gets to a stage and it says, right, enough, you're going to listen to me.
Yeah.
And when that happens, that's when it gets scary because suddenly you have a diagnosis. There's a label that's given to it, and that label is scary. Although you've probably had those symptoms for quite a while, you just haven't paid attention to them. The issue that I have with my daughter is that she was really young. She was 5. So to verbalize how she was
So
really
yeah.
feeling was really tricky, right? We were living in Switzerland. We were eating just average, normal food, not a crazy diet. We weren't, I wasn't cutting things out left, right, and center. We were having cheese. We were having fresh bread from our baker. We were like vegetables from the market, but I couldn't figure out what was wrong. She was waking up at night crying. Some nights, others she was okay, or it would be during the day. Her digestive system was kind of out of whack, and I could see that. And it was just trying to understand what's happening to this little 5-year-old. And my son was perfectly fine. So I'm like, what is going on? And so you sort of wonder, is it, the doctors kind of, you go through all these different testings. Because being a nurse at the time, I was like, okay, let's go through the medical system. So we did. And everything came up fine. They're like, she's fine. We tested for celiac disease. They're like, she's not celiac. And I'm like, well, there's something bothering her. Most of the time I was told, well, she'll grow out of it,
She would
and
just grow out
she
of
would grow
it.
out of it. Yeah, that's what I was
So
told.
what, so were they thinking it was just,
Nothing. They had nothing for me.
oh,
They were
okay.
like,
So they would just
they would just
grow out of it.
disregard. And part of it was like, well, you're an overprotective parent. It's coming from you. Because at
And
one
that's
point,
like, what's that like to
well,
be told by the medical
awful. It was
community
horrible.
that it's just you?
Yeah, I was overbearing on her. Her issues were coming from me. And at one point, she had to be hospitalized for an intervention for her gut just to relieve the stress. And to be fully discharged the next day, I was told that we had to go and have an evaluation, a mental health evaluation, because essentially,
Sorry, back up. So who had to go in for mental health? Like,
Caroline and I, so I had to accompany Caroline, and
and you both had to
we
have
were
an
both being
evaluation
assessed, yeah, to
because
see if,
you were,
because I was
because maybe it's your
yeah,
problem is what the,
maybe I was causing it.
okay,
Right? Maybe I was putting stress on, I don't know.
right.
And it was tricky because I was really happy she was feeling better. And it's like, okay, you can go home. But before we can fully discharge you, this is what needs to happen. You need to go and see this person. We've booked your appointment, you have to go.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, I have to go, but what do I tell a 5-year-old? Like, and you can't try and play the system because if I try to pre-warn her and sort of tell her to say things,
Yeah,
that's going
then
to come out.
that's
So
gonna shoot you in the foot. Yeah. Like,
I was furious with the pediatrician. I was livid. Until then, we'd had a relatively good contact. After that, I never saw him again. So I essentially just said to my daughter, okay, look, we have to go and see this chap. You want to go back to school? Tell him what happened, tell him how you're feeling. That's my safest bet.
Okay.
Just play kind of safe
Yeah.
and we stayed there for 15, 20 minutes, I think, because she was playing and all she wanted to do was to get back to school.
Yeah.
Like she didn't want to talk about it.
And I think, before we carry on, I mean, the big part of this is, and it's got to be so much harder when it's your child, when it's a young child
Yeah.
who is sick, and
On and off. You know they're
you
off.
know
You
that
know
there's
something's not right.
something
Yeah.
wrong, even though nobody else knows. But even as adults and stuff,
Yeah.
the knowing that there's something, so trusting yourself when you
Yeah.
know something's not
Something's up.
right, and
Yeah.
keep
At it.
looking. But also that absolute, it must have been overwhelming and
Oh, it was.
fearful to see that something's wrong and you can't.
You can't do anything. You don't know what to do. You feel, what do you feel? You feel paralyzed. You feel confused because on the one hand, there were days that she was okay. And then there were days that she wasn't as much. And afterwards, when you start looking back at everything, you're able to piece things and go, okay, like she was always very reluctant to eat things like a fondue, right? She's lactose intolerant. But we eat a lot of fondue. And so what we did, eat a lot of fondue. And if I look back on it, she would always have like one or two mouthfuls of it. And then she'd go, no, no, I'm okay. Now, but she's 5. She can't say to me, I've had enough and it's making my tummy ache, because her tummy was hurting on and off all the time.
Right.
So how would she be able to tell me, right? But as her parent, as an adult, afterwards, I was able to go, oh, now this is starting to make a whole load of sense. But until I realized what was wrong with her, none of it made sense.
So you did eventually figure out what was wrong
So
with
we
her.
did.
And was that through a diagnosis that they were finally
Yeah.
able to do, or did you actually figure it out? Because you pivoted.
Yeah, I
This was
pivoted.
where you
Yeah,
decided to start investigating food. Am I right on this?
exactly.
And
Yeah.
start to go through that deep dive, and eventually became a
Nutritionist. Yeah.
nutritionist. So what was that like?
We had done one final test, that came out again, like everything else, going, there's nothing wrong with her. And none of this makes sense. Yeah, it was. And then they said, well, the only other test that we could do would be a gut biopsy. And by then she was 6. And I thought, you're not doing a biopsy on a 6-year-old because you have nothing else to show me. Like, why would I put her under such an invasive intervention?
Yeah.
So I said to my husband, look, we have exhausted every single medical avenue that I can see and understand as a nurse and as a parent. And I'm like, I'm just going to throw my hat to the wind. And I went to see a naturopath. I'm like, what have I got to lose?
Fantastic.
Right?
Yes.
And it was through seeing her, through having an assessment with her, talking about Caroline's whole history, right? And we're not just focusing on like 10 minutes, right? It's an hour. You sit down and you talk about everything.
Yeah.
And it was through talking with her, and she was saying, right, well, from what I can see, from what you're telling me, go home and try this and this. And we met up several times to refine things. However difficult it was in trying to make those changes in the kitchen, to adapt to gluten and dairy free, it was so frustrating. But the relief I had, trust me, we had some
Oh
weird
my God,
recipes.
giving up some of those things. I mean, that would be hard. That would be hard.
I remember trying to make this seeded loaf. And it was so heavy. My husband came home and he was like, God, am I a rabbit now? Because there were like so many seeds in it. I was like, oh my God. And it was tricky. It was really hard. And there were days I was in the kitchen, I was like, what am I doing? But the benefit that she was getting from it was so worth it.
Yeah.
Right. And after that, sort of, it was, as you said, it really was a pivot, because when she was first sort of starting to present these issues, I was actually working in a day chemo ward. So I was preparing chemo for people. And going in and setting it up for them. They would come in for their treatment for the day and they would go home. And then I'd go home and I'd see my daughter like that. And I was like, what is going on? Right.
That must have been terrifying.
So it was just more like, okay, I've gone from preparing chemo to people to really looking at what's in my kitchen and how that can impact her. So I'm certainly not saying that you can solve, let's be very clear, like cancer through food, but you can certainly support your health with good food. But for me, it was just like, oh my gosh, I've gone from like putting all these things in people, which are very important and serve their purpose, But for my daughter, it was like, wow, what she needs is different things in the kitchen.
Different
And
things.
that was the huge pivot for me. I was like, that is bizarre. It
Yeah,
was such a shift to realize how deeply what we ate has an impact on us.
that's incredible.
Right.
And what I find so incredible is not only did you pivot
Yeah. I
in,
stayed there.
well, you pivoted at home to look
Mm,
after your child, and recognizing how important the food was,
mm.
but you actually changed your career
Yes, I
and
did.
totally moved in into this new
Yeah,
area.
and I love it.
And then you're so amazing at it. And what I find so interesting is as a nutritionist, and here's my thing.
Right. Go for it.
Disclosure, Susan, disclosure. Like I always thought a nutritionist and a dietitian, they were kind of the same,
No.
and that it was, you just like work on meal planning and stuff.
Mm.
But you do something very different. Like you are actually looking at, so when people come to you, they're actually coming to you because they're having
Gut
issues,
issues, yeah, gut issues, weight issues, cholesterol issues.
cholesterol, yeah,
Because all of these, and again, it's so weird because if I think back to 30 years ago and I was nursing, these were all chronic illnesses that we just accepted were chronic and were part of our life. Now, fast forward
really?
30
So
years.
sorry. So we just accepted that?
Yeah, 30 years ago.
Like
Yeah,
that wasn't even on my radar
no,
30 years
30
ago.
years ago when I was nursing, if I was looking after people who are in their 50s and 60s and they had high blood pressure, the only thing the doctors would say to them is reduce your salt and take these tablets.
Here's a
That was
pill.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, fast forward, we understand that many of these chronic illnesses are 80% lifestyle and nutrition. Like literally,
80,
yeah. High
80%.
cholesterol, high blood pressure, digestive issues, all of those to a large extent are diet and life related, like lifestyle. Because
Wow.
our
I had no
lifestyle,
idea it
yeah,
was that
it's
high.
huge. It is huge. But again, we've been so conditioned over the years. Again, if I think back to, you're not
Take a
feeling well,
pill,
take a
take a
pill,
pill,
right?
take a pill.
So,
Yeah.
I think if there's one thing, if anybody's listening, we can do a lot for ourselves. It doesn't have to be complicated. It can be little things, even just hydrating better,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Has a huge impact on our mental
Speaking
capacity.
of which,
Yes.
okay, so Susan's been helping me as well. And one thing so I've implemented a few things, but one thing is I really increased my water and what a difference that made, even
Right.
from an energy level
Yeah.
and a mental clarity. Like
Yeah.
I don't feel as foggy.
Right.
So yeah,
Yeah.
so all these small things.
This is it. We've been conditioned to search out when we can actually, if we start just trying to piece a few little things together,
Small changes.
small changes, and it really doesn't have to be complicated. Like you said, hydration, right? Just one
Yeah.
step leads to another.
Yeah.
Right. And it
Timing. That was
yes.
another thing that you told me is
Right.
about eating certain foods at certain times. And
yeah.
I've been very aware of that.
Yeah.
And what a difference that is
Yeah.
making as well. And what I love about your story is not only do you have so much knowledge and all of these different things, but that, and again, I come back to, I think for so many people, when they find out that something is not
Oh,
right,
scary.
it's so scary and it's paralyzing. And, how do you move forward? It's just that maybe that numbness.
It is.
It's, when you hear that label, you mentioned that earlier, when you hear that label, it's terrifying.
It's terrifying. And the thing is, because the appointments with our health practitioner are so short, I can't tell you how many clients that I've seen that have been given a label, given a diagnosis, and I'm talking with them, and the stress of them not properly understanding what that means for them is huge. So that alone, we go through that. What does it mean for them? What are the implications? Actually, it's really not as bad as you think. And that alone, you can see the stress of them. It's not like, because again, if somebody's never been sick and they have this, it is scary. You've been given a diagnosis. All that diagnosis means is essentially, if it's something that's chronic, your body's out of balance.
Yeah.
How can we get it back in balance again?
Yeah.
And that's really what we're looking at.
Right? And that's really what your business is all about, right?
Getting people back in balance.
Getting people back in balance.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. And there are various ways, and I'm going to do a little plug in for my website here, but there's several simple courses on my website. There's a kitchen reset, which helps you Go through your kitchen, make sure that things are visible, tidy up. I do one or two every once in a while because my kitchen gets super messy. But it really does, it makes a difference. It helps you be a bit more organized, a bit more aware again of what ingredients you're using and what you're not. So that's super helpful. There's also 2 other courses that are slightly more advanced in terms of they demand a bit more time, but all of them are self-paced. So if you're to go on my website, susanelsenbach.com, and they are under
Say that again. You went
resources.
really
So
fast.
I didn't I?
Yeah.
susanelsenbach.com, and we will leave the link.
We'll leave that in the link below for sure.
I got excited.
Yeah. I love your story, and I know that so many people are going to relate. And just, because your story is about many things, and that
it
is owning your power and moving through it and making some changes and having some small changes and what a difference that makes. And of course, I've met her. She's fantastic. So she's fine.
She's fine.
Yeah.
And again, one of the things as well is I find one method doesn't exclude the others. So it's working with the medical system. I'm not trying to work against it, right? So if people are on medication for certain things, we respect that. I'm not trying to say we're going to get you off all your medication. My role is, how can we support your health? You are here, but what can we do to improve it? Taking into account, and maybe certain things will be diminished over time. That would be great. But at least you'll have a more solid foundation to work with.
Yeah. I'm so glad you said that, because that is important, working together with the medical community, and not trying to take that away, because both have value. Both have value.
Super important. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for your
pleasure.
Thank you for sharing.
And I hope it helped.
I hope that helps other people, that you are not alone.
No, you're not.
There are options, and take a breath and just, you got this.
Take a deep breath. You got it.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.